Dogs like me. Cats like me. For some reason, not of my own making, when we go into someone's house and they have a pet, the dog or cat will eventually sidle up to me for some lovin'. And then I do this. You see, I don't get the same vibe for them as they do for me. I attribute it to a bad experience I must have had as a child with our beagles growing up. But dogs like me. So it wasn't really a surprise when we were seated at the dinner table at Peter and Julie's house, and our grandsons were there, and we were having some burgers hot off the grill. Now, our granddog is Peanut. Yes, I have a granddog named Peanut. He's a rescue dog, meaning that my son and daughter-in-law took him in from a foster family, and he was with this foster family because no one would want Peanut. He had been very badly treated as a puppy. Well, now he has a home. Well, early on in our relationship, Peanut took about a pound of flesh out of my leg every time I walked by. And as he was, 6 inches away from my leg, barking up a storm, his mother, Julie, would say, "Oh, Peanut, that's all right. It's just Grandpa Bill." I clearly understood where I stood in this relationship. So Peanut likes to bark, not so much at me anymore, except when we're going up the stairs at night. But anyway, just about every person that walks by their house, he barks at, loudly, long. So to train him, when he stops barking, they give him a treat. I'm unsure of the wisdom of this type of discipline, but it's their dog. So as we were sitting down to eat these very nice hamburgers, hot off the grill, some poor stranger walks by the window in their dining room, and Peanut, of course, goes berserk. His parents, just sort of, and they do say, "Hold it," or something like that. And then he stops, and then Peanut strolls over to me. He puts his face right on my knee as I'm sitting there, and there's Peanut, and I've got my hamburger, and I look up at Peter and Julie, and I said, "Well, what am I supposed to do now?" And Peter says, "He wants some of your hamburger." I'm supposed to give my hamburger, my food I need to live, the food I need to eat so I can take my medicine, to a dog? That's what Jesus meant. That's the story. Jesus was exhausted. He had just gone through this exhausting part of his ministry, most recently, as Pastor Phil told you last week, confronting the religion police, explaining that all their rules about food were foolish. He was saying that if he kept it up, the things he was saying were going to get Jesus killed. He knew it. But it wasn't time yet. But he was beat. He was mentally and physically and emotionally exhausted. He needed a 4-day weekend. He needed a vacation. So he heads out of town, away from his hometown, away from the Jewish people. He goes to a distant town, a nice vacation place, a town that had been the oppressor of Israel. He figures he's not going to find anybody there who knows him. The locals, who had been the enemy, of course, were not Jewish. They were Gentiles, which is the word the Bible uses. They call it Greek in the Bible in this story, but really it just means Gentile, a non-Jew. This woman wasn't Greek. She was from Syria Phoenician. So she's, though, a Gentile. She's not a Jew. That's the point. She speaks a different language. She looks different. She eats different foods. These people had a different religion. No one, Jesus thought, would bother him there. He badly needed time away, just a couple of weeks to regroup, get a new picture for the vision of what he was doing. So, Jesus checks into the local bed and breakfast, maybe using an assumed name, just in case. He sits down in the backyard. He had told the proprietor, now look, I don't want anybody to know I'm here, okay? No problem. So, he's sitting in the backyard, getting ready to watch the sun set, maybe has a cool drink next to him, waiting for one of these spectacular displays of the setting sun, revealing stars, all of which he had put there with his divine fingers. But maybe the proprietor had one of these moments of, well, saying to his neighbor, now don't tell anybody, but Jesus is staying at my bed and breakfast. And pretty soon the whole town knows about it. The Jewish prophet has come to the Gentile territory. Jesus didn't know the secret was out until this woman shows up. This mother, whose daughter is possessed by an evil spirit, who's as sick a little girl as a little girl can be. This mother is desperate for a cure for her daughter, and Jesus is in town. So she walks around the back, works her way around the fence into the backyard. She's breaking all of the rules of Jewish custom, all of the rules of society, talking to Jesus, a man, a rabbi. Who did she think she was? A non-Jew, a Gentile, a woman, goes up to the Jewish rabbi and falls at Jesus' feet. If she touched him, the Jews believed, Jesus would be defiled. He would need to go cleanse himself just from the touch of this Gentile woman. At his feet, groveling almost in the dirt, she weeps and begs for Jesus to say a word which she believes will heal her daughter. Now, in our minds, what do you think the next words would be? Right? Jesus, who you see in the Sunday school papers, who you see in the children's Bible, he's got the children on his lap, hugging them. We fully expect Jesus to say, well, of course I'll heal your daughter. I know it's vacation, but that's all right. No problem. I know you're really not one of my people, but it's okay. I love you. I love the children. Let me bless your daughter. That's what we think he should say. That's what we think he will say. But what does he say? Now, what's going on, right? There are so many theories, people who have tried to make this sound less than it is. Well, Jesus probably had a little twinkle in his eye when he said this, and sort of like, well, the bread is for children, you can't give it to dogs, sort of thing. Doesn't really mean anything bad. Or maybe he's putting her to a test. He's testing her faith. That's another theory. And there are like a dozen other theories that I read about in different commentaries about different things, different ways of trying to explain what to me is a pretty obvious thing. Jesus is insulting the woman. You don't call somebody a dog to their face, do you? And that's what he said. You see, the children are Israel. They are the chosen ones. They are the people of Israel. Jesus says often, I have come to save my people, the lost sheep of Israel. Time and again, Jesus says, I have come to save the lost sheep of Israel. I'm not giving my hamburger to Peanut is a cute story. But Jesus saying to this woman that he will not give his mercy to a little girl because the little girl is a dog? Not too cute a story. But it's the same picture. You see, Jesus, I think this is what Scripture's telling us. I think up to that point, up to this moment, Jesus knew that his mission was to save his people, the chosen, the people of Israel. It was the divine plan. Jesus knew this much. It was a divine plan that he would come to save the Jews would reject him, they would put him on the cross, and as Jesus is on the cross, he would invite all the world to him, and all who believe in Jesus Christ would be saved. Right? John 3:16. You all know that. But it wasn't yet the time, Jesus thought. So let me talk to you about something John Calvin says. I've wondered about this whole secret thing for years, because this is what's called the messianic secret, that Jesus oftentimes says to his disciples, to the people he heals, don't tell anybody. I want to be alone. Don't tell anybody I'm here. And there are another dozen theories about why Jesus wants to have this secret. But John Calvin has this great insight, and he calls it the divine limitation. And I think this is it. I think that Jesus, in his mind, you see, Jesus, we know, right? Incarnate, fully God, fully human, all at the same time. He's both fully human, he's both fully God at the same time. And yet he has put on himself, God has put on himself in his son, in his form as the Son, as the incarnate Son, a divine limitation of how much he knows when. I think that's what this story is about. Jesus knew this much. I have come to be the Savior of the people of Israel. And this woman, this Greek, who he has been told since he was a child, do not go near the Gentiles. That's what they taught him in Sabbath school. That's what the rabbis taught him. That's probably what his mommy and daddy taught him. Don't go near the Gentiles. They're unclean. And so Jesus is simply saying what he has heard. And it is part of his divine limitation. My mission is to my people. And so some people say, well, Jesus had a bad day. He lost his temper or whatever. I don't think Jesus sinned. You know, Jesus doesn't sin. We know that much. Jesus can't sin. He's without sin. That's why he could be on the cross instead of us. So this wasn't a sin. But within the divine limitation, Jesus is saying what all of his people have said. The Gentiles, who, by the way, unless you're Jewish, that's you and me, we're the woman in this story. We're the dog in this story. But for what happens next. The woman says, you're right. You're right, Jesus. But, now here, this woman today, she would have her own TV show. She is a quick wit. She is a quick thinker. She is a woman desperate for the healing of her child. And her faith gives her this statement that in my mind changes the history of religion, changes the history of the world. This woman says, you are right, Master, Lord. Do you know this is the only Gentile to call Jesus Lord before we get to after the resurrection? And what does Paul say? If you say in your heart and with your mouth, Jesus is Lord, and confess that Jesus is Lord and believe it in your heart, as we'll celebrate when we do Profession of Faith on September 27th. If you say Jesus is Lord, you are saved. And this woman says, Lord, and he gets a connection. Boom, wow, ton of bricks right here. My goodness, this Gentile knows the secret. She knows who I am. Jesus, you're right. The food is for the children on the table, but even the dogs get the scraps. So give me just a schnibble of your grace, of your power, and my daughter will be healed. Jesus, if he's standing, takes a step back. Light bulb moment. people know. The people know the truth. The secret is out. I have come to save the world. And Jesus says, because of what you said in your reply, you may go. Your daughter is healed. What was in her reply? Lord, yes. Lord, yes. But it was an understanding that Jesus was different. It was, how in the world did she get this understanding, right? I have a passion in my heart that children would come to know Jesus Christ through this church. How do we get into parents, every parent we can touch, the desperateness of this woman, that they would bring her child to Jesus to be healed? Do they need to be sick and near death? And isn't that the condition of all of us before we know Jesus Christ? So we need to somehow help the parents that we can touch understand what this woman did for us. What she said was, Lord, you are right. Now just give me a tiny crumb of what you have, and my daughter will be healed. Our lives will be changed. And Jesus, you're right. He got it. The world was going to be saved. One of the biggest game-changing moments in history. The rules of society said the little girl was to the Jews just a dog. But the woman knew that the mercy and power of Jesus, Messiah, are not bounded by society's rules. So do we have any dogs in the view of our church? You have any dogs in your life? People that we think are not deserving to be blessed in this church by our work? You know what I'm convicted of? I've been here 6 years, and I don't know the names of the people who live in that house right across the street. I've gone over, said hello, couldn't quite work up the courage to say, who are you? Could I be your friend? I don't know. I've been going to this church, not knowing it, but since I was born in 1954. I don't know if we've ever done anything outside that says to our neighbors, hey, come on over. It's not that far across the street, but sometimes I feel like we've built a 48-foot brick wall. That's why I want to put a bounce house out there. I want to have the smoke going and the free food being offered. Come on over. You see, what we do in this church, everything we do in this church, should be consistent with our vision to reach out and enfold the lost and the hurting. I'm not saying they're lost and hurting. I don't even know who they are. But we ought to invite them. You see, everything we do should be consistent with what we just read, that mission and vision, and nothing we do should be inconsistent with it. If we have a program in this church that is inconsistent, that doesn't match up with our vision, stop doing it. It may be a great idea, but we're not going to do it. I don't think. I'm going to ask the consistory to support me in this. Any program that does not meet the values, the vision, the mission of this church, stop it. Focus our efforts on bringing the love of Jesus Christ to every lost and hurting person, transforming their lives as we transform our lives, just as this woman did for her daughter. We are the woman now who goes to Jesus and says, Jesus, you see those people across the street? They need to know it's not a secret. They need to know we're not secret agents. We don't have some secret here anymore. The secret's over. The secret's out. We need people to say of us what they said of Jesus after he healed that man. They're doing amazing things there at Hope Church. And you watch what happens to this church if that happens. Now, are you willing, am I willing to be the woman who goes to plead with Jesus for her daughter? Are you and I willing to be the person who brings the deaf man who can hardly speak to Jesus and say, Jesus, will you heal him? And do you know what Jesus did? He didn't make a big show about it, right? It's not like these healing shows you can see on TV where they fill up a football stadium, and then some guy dressed in a colorful suit puts his hand on somebody and they fall over. What's that all about? You know how Jesus did healing? Jesus takes the man aside in a corner. He spits, puts his spit on the man's tongue, and the man, of course, can't hear anything, so Jesus puts his fingers in his ears to say, I'm going to do something to your ears. I'm going to do something to your tongue. And he's healed because people brought him to Jesus. Jesus, still with his divine limitation, is saying, oh boy, I don't really want everybody to know about this just yet. Don't tell anybody, okay? But that's like telling a child going down to the living room on Christmas morning, be quiet because Daddy's sleeping. It's not happening. It's too amazing. And so the people say, he's done everything good. And isn't that so much like Genesis, where God says of his own work, and he saw that it was good. So God is calling you, God is calling me as a church to invite our neighbors, to be a mission team to our neighborhood. I love that we sent a mission team to Mexico. I think it's tremendous that people got that vision, that Living Hope International exists so that we have a place to send where people could learn what it means to cross cultural barriers, to cross language barriers, to cross race barriers. I love that we have that mission team. My question is, who is the mission team across the street? It ought to be me, and maybe some of you. That's what I want us to think about this month. We have a choice. Are we content to remain secret agents on a secret mission? Or are we ready to cross the barriers of society in order to open ears so they can hear the voice of Jesus?